It's Harsanyi time. We got our friend David Harsanyi in the mix. He is at nationalreview.com, senior writer there. David, what's going on?
Not much. How are you?
You know, getting used to what it's like to have our Democrat overlords in place here. It's every bit as annoying, frustrating, and pointless as I thought it would be. But let's do this first because I've been talking today a fair amount about the canceling of. I know it's only 6 books, but they're canceling children's books now. You wrote that it's fascinating to me that people can't stand against the book burners without making about Fox or conservatives. And even if Geisel was a racist, meaning Dr. Seuss, it doesn't change anything. Roald Dahl was an anti-Semite, and I still wouldn't want people to stop publishing his books. Explain.
I've been making this argument for a long time. I mean, free speech is not contingent, or your belief in free speech and in an open society isn't contingent on the opinions themselves. Either you believe that free speech is a neutral principle or you don't. Now, people don't have to publish a book, but if they're banning a book because it's insensitive, and then even the people who are against that, meaning, left-wing people, they always have to make the case that Dr. Seuss wasn't, deep inside, he wasn't a racist. It doesn't matter. There are plenty of books we read from people who were racists or who had opinions in the time that would not work today for us. That doesn't diminish their work. There's a million books we can ban right now. I was just rereading one of my favorite books, All the King's Men, and the N-word is used throughout it, but it's not a racist book. I know that it's weird to say. It's a book of the time in Louisiana in the 1930s, and that's the way that people spoke in those days. This is a never-ending ban list you're going to have. And the left-wingers, they can't even say we shouldn't ban it. Instead, they're talking about how Dr. Seuss would hate Fox News. Who cares? It has nothing to do with it. But they can't just get themselves to be on the right side of something like this. So I don't know. It just annoyed me.
I think it shows the power of the woke narrative that there are so many people who are making a living in the realm of free expression and free speech, or what should be that realm. And if you're it's very straightforward. If you're somebody who's a big Biden supporter and Biden voter, and you work in news media, any kind of communications media, you basically, I know there are some exceptions and we know who they are, the prominent ones, but you basically shut your damn mouth and go along with all this cancellation stuff, even though you're supposed to be the people who would speak out most fervently against it.
I'm sure you've been following this thing at the New York Times where the science reporter of 40 plus years was fired for using the N-word in a descriptive way, not insulting anyone with it, but asking a student about it. And he was fired, and he's put up like 4 long blog posts detailing what happened. And it's this, I don't know if it's more like 1984 or it's more like Kafka's The Trial or something, but it's just insane to read. And I don't even know how people can function, especially creative people or writers or people who are supposedly thinking for themselves, can function in that kind of stifling intellectual environment. I think it's sad for the New York Times. I think it's sad for us in general.
I've asked people this: what, for example, should be the sanction against somebody who is a court stenographer? Is she supposed to, or he's supposed to make, edits in real time? If you're reading back what somebody, what about a detective? A detective who's saying, this is what I heard the suspect say before the shooting happened. Is he supposed to be bleeped, or is he going to actually be canceled and fired for quoting words that he heard in the context of a criminal investigation? You start to go into this realm of straight crazy town. And another thing I think is really problematic, and nobody else will say this, when you're going into the banning of words, but only some people aren't allowed to say the words, other people are. This is really just a power dynamic. This is actually something that people should reject on a principle. It's not like it's a ban on a word because if it is ever heard or uttered. In some contexts, words that are banned for some people are celebrated in others, as we all know. And I think that this is a rule that really is just about making some people bend the knee to the constantly changing whims of the left. It doesn't actually protect anyone or make it. Everyone understands that using an ethnic slur or using a demeaning word about somebody's immutable characteristic is a grotesque and immoral thing to do. But this goes way beyond that into even the repetition of somebody else saying the word specifically to understand what the word was is now a cancelable offense.
Yeah, you make a great point on the court stenographer. If now we have to bore into the soul of whoever's using whatever word and divine or try to figure out their intent, that's going to be a rough road. And as you say, certain people are empowered or bestowed with the power to decide who is using it correctly and who isn't. I mean, then it's just about power. Now, there's already certain words have stigma attached to them, and we don't use them and we don't say them. And normal, well-adjusted people don't use these words in a way to insult other people. But, in the end, even if they do that, it doesn't mean they have to work at the New York Times. But are we going to let's say Dr. Seuss used those words in the past. Are we going to now get rid of his books everywhere because he was that kind of person? It seems just these standards are. Listen, I mentioned this before, but literally I was just thinking about all the books. Chuck Palahniuk wrote The Fight Club, a book that I love. I mean, has misogynistic characters in it. So what are we going to do? Do we know that he isn't a misogynist? No, I'd have to go and meet him before I know if I can publish his book. You can't have these kind of standards in society. It doesn't work, especially in an artistic way. Remember 20, 30 years ago, it was the left who was always like, we're going to ban books in libraries. They were the ones always concerned about it. It was in the Patriot Act. Remember, it was such a big deal that the government would know what books you're taking out. And now they're perfectly fine with it, or they don't say anything, which is bad enough for someone who's a journalist.
We're speaking to David Harsanyi. He is a senior writer at National Review. And, David, I wanted to get your take on the mobile, the changing, malleable is the word I was really thinking of, the malleable journalistic ethics of CNN as an organization, and more specifically Chris Cuomo. Look, I understand this. I don't care what my job is, what I'm doing. I wouldn't be on TV trashing a family member. And I mean, up to the point where they could say, you do this or else, and I'd say I'll take the or else. That's just that's a point of honor and pride for me, and I wouldn't do it. However, if I were holding myself out as a journalist, I would also have shied away from doing a propaganda variety hour in favor of a politician during a pandemic because he was my brother. And I think that CNN should have known that, too, as a, quote, news organization.
Yeah. Well, two things. They're not a news organization. They're just kind of this corrupt institution that pretends to do journalism. They are the worst of all of them, worse than MSNBC, because they pretend not to be on the left, which is they're just a propaganda unit. But more than that, with Chris Cuomo, they keep pretending that the problem is that he isn't covering what's going on now with his brother. No, the problem is that he covered up for his brother for a year. Now, he never should, as you mentioned. I would never go on there and badmouth my brother, even if it was true. I would just report something else. But the idea, no one wants that. I don't think any normal people want him to do that. They wanted him not to act, as you say, in this variety hour, covering up for a guy who was sending people to die in nursing homes. And for me, listen, I think that these accusations against Cuomo are serious. I hope he's afforded the due process that liberals never give conservatives like Brett Kavanaugh. They're serious allegations, but the using government to kill people is an even more serious allegation, and people still aren't talking about it. Even the left, which is now supposedly, the reason, of course, is timing of why they don't care about Cuomo now, but even they are not really getting into the worst sins of how he acted like a dictator, basically, and destroyed the lives of many people. So just to go back, Chris Cuomo's problem is not the coverage, as you mentioned, but the not covering, but the coverage itself.
And I have to say that this idea that the media was honest in the way that it was portraying Governor Cuomo in the past, I mean, I know that that's not true, because you and I were having conversations 6 months ago about the gross, slobbering love affair that the mainstream media was having, corporate media was having, with Cuomo as the governor of New York. And I also put it in my many, many, many exhibits of what a complete jackass Dr. Fauci is and what awful, awful judgment he has. He was pointing to Andrew Cuomo as the gold standard. I mean, What else do you have to? If this guy was my private physician, I wouldn't even go let him, hit me on the knee to check my reflexes. Like, I would go nowhere near this guy, and he's still allowed to make all these policies.
Yeah, he literally said the words, "This is the way to do it," or he's done it the right way, and the rest of the country should follow. Why doesn't anyone ask him about that? Why doesn't anyone ask him how he feels about that and why he made another big giant mistake in the past? No one challenges that guy with any access. But yeah, we were talking about this probably, I don't know when exactly, but probably in April already, right? I mean, there were some local reporters that noted that he had fudged the numbers on the deaths at nursing homes way back in, I think it was April or May. I think they were at the Associated Press and some other organization in Albany. People knew the main media, the political media, the big time Chris Cuomo's of the world, and everyone who's on TV covered it up for him, and they wouldn't report it and they ignored it. And and now they pretend that never happened. No one ever has to answer for those things in the media. They just go on, they make giant mistakes. They literally cost lives. Maybe it cost lives in this instance, or maybe they didn't cost lives, but they covered up something that was, that might have had a lot to do with the high death tolls in New York, frankly. So, and that spread from there to the rest of the country, by the way. Even though I don't know that that's exactly true. We can't know. I think the virus was going to go through America anyway. But the point is that they did not cover Donald Trump with that tone, or DeSantis or any Republican. So it's just completely misleading reporting that was a year-long thing. And now that we're supposed to reward them because they finally decided to go after Andrew Cuomo when it doesn't matter for Democrats anymore.
David Harsanyi, everybody, nationalreview.com for his latest. David, thanks so much for joining.
Thank you.
Hey, Team Buck, thank you so much for watching The First on YouTube. If you like this video, please click that little thumbs up button so then it will log as liked. And also, if you want to see more great content from The First, please click subscribe.